This is Tony. After 20 years, the idea of parting with Tony still hasn't become any easier for me. I spoke to 5 people who understood my struggle over whether or not to part with my bear. These are their toy stories.
My name is Mrs. Nancy Holmes. I think the main thing is I always wanted a doll. And for some reason or other, I never ever really got a doll. And it was only when my young sister came on the scene that she started to get dolls, and I was more interested in her dolls then than other things. But the thing was, I was old enough to make clothes for her dolls, because by that time the war was on, and the dolls that you bought had no clothes if you could buy one, and sometimes it was a case of dressing up a second-hand doll just to make it look different. And I was fortunate that my grandmother had taught me how to knit, and I knitted clothes for the doll, and that way I became part of the doll's life, and I was sort of reliving what I should have been living a few years before.
I'm Suzanne and this is Ted. I'm 24 and he's 24 and a half. My mum got him as a gift for going on maternity leave with me, and he used to have a wee mini Ted and he used to hug him, but I lost him when I was about 4, so it just was me and Ted from then on, and he goes with me everywhere I go.
Before I started school, I remember getting a blackboard which had a blackboard on one side, and on the other side it was a clock to learn the time. And many a tear I shed over that clock, because my father was determined that I was going to learn to read the time.
My name's David and I'm the voice of Tony the Teddy. I think your mum bought him when you were about 1.5, thereabouts. Maybe about 1.5.
Well, he came to Ibiza with me for the season last year. That was awkward when I had 5 kiddo roommates and they all used to ask me what it was. So yeah, we've been loads of different places. He's been to Florida with me. When I was in Ibiza, he came down to the sunset and sat and watched the sunset with me in a bottle of Kopparberg with like hundreds of people. Everybody liked him though, so it was alright. We used to have birthday parties for him. My Gran and Papa used to buy him birthday presents on the 22nd of December, because that's the day my mum went on maternity, so that was his birthday. We used to have loads of parties, buy him cake, loads of things.
My name's Sheena and this is Rachel, and that is my favourite toy from when I was younger than Rachel.
I lost my head for a moment.
It was a present from my big brother and his girlfriend at the time.
But this was his way of preparing me for school, and all I wanted to do was draw on the blackboard side of it, you know, and of course I had to learn to write my name. That was very, very, you had to do that before you went to school. You had to write your name. And the thing was, I was called Nancy by my mother and father and the family, but my proper name, my Sunday name, was Annie. And of course, when I went to school and the teacher called out Annie, I didn't think it was me. But however, it soon fell into place, so it did. But the clock, I hated that clock. I hated it, so I did, because every time my dad brought out the blackboard, I just froze, because I couldn't get this clock thing at all.
And my favourite toy is this one. because she was my first unicorn that I actually had.
Okay. What's her name?
Her name is Horsey.
Do you have any other favourite toys?
Well, yes. Well, this one is I have quite a lot of other favourite toys, but this one, well, all of them are my other favourite toys, really.
Why it was so quiet? Didn't say an awful lot unless I was there. And I think that sometimes you just get attached to a toy, and that toy is particularly special to you. And for some reason, Tony was kind of special to you.
I'm kind of attached to him, and he's like a kind of comfort, and I always smell him, and he helps me go to sleep. Doesn't smell nice, but I like it.
But I remember my mother making a doll for me out of a towel. She rolled the towel up and then tied a string round to shape its neck and its arms and all the rest of it. And I was quite pleased with that, you know, it was a doll.
I had one teddy that growled as well, which I liked because nobody else had a teddy that growled.
Quite a stretch.
But I do remember while the war was on, my youngest brother, Tommy, he was just about 2 or 3 at the time, and my father worked at the docks, and he came in this day with a huge piece of wood, and it was absolutely solid. It looked as if it was part of a railway sleeper, which was these heavy pieces of wood. And he brought this home, and it was about the size of a good sized loaf, but it was all rough. But I always remember he worked on it for weeks and weeks on end. He planed it and he polished it and he wrote it, and then he painted it, and it was painted in camouflage to look like a tank. And my young brother was delighted with it. He thought it was, and all it was an old piece of wood. So it was, but with a wee bit of paint and a wee bit of love behind the work that was put into it, it made it into something.
What you used to do during the day, you used to remember all the things that happened, and then at night you used to tell Tony the Teddy, despite the fact that we were all there during the day, but you still liked to tell him what had happened because you saw him as somebody completely different.
Do you think you could ever part with your childhood toys?
No.
Lost my head over
Why
you.
not? I've got a few that I've kept and I don't think I would ever get rid of them because I've got to that stage of having them. I don't think I'd ever get rid of them now.
Why do you think you wouldn't get rid of them?
Why wouldn't I? Because she'll end up with them, I would think. And I don't see you getting rid of them, would you?
Mm-mm.
Falling apart.
Well, to be fair, if you look at the state of him, it probably doesn't look like I respect him that much, but I really do. This happened, I blame my sister to this day, but one night I woke up in the middle of the night and he had fallen off my bed, and I went to pick him up, and when I picked him up, I put my hand on his neck, and I realised that he was broken. So I started screaming the house down, woke everybody up. Everybody thought something terrible had happened, but my sister just lay in bed, just like crying, and I was like, it was you, blaming her. That was about 10 years ago, mind you, so he's doing well.
Why do you like unicorns so much?
Well, because they don't. That's because you don't really. That's because they don't. That's because that they can fly and they have horns, and they're not like horses because they don't have horns and they don't have wings.
I was working in a sheet metal work, which was it was it was part of the Admiralty, came under the Admiralty, so it meant I didn't have to go into the armed forces.
I'll probably love him more now because he's a wee soul and I need to look after him better. He's blogging as well. He used to be bright white and fluffy. He's kind of lost the fluff and the whiteness.
However, one of the men in the shop, he's decided, he says, you've got wee brothers, he says, right, he says, but do you think they would like some soldiers or aeroplanes? And they made a die, and they made soldiers and aeroplanes out of the lead. If the boss had known, we would have got thrown out in one year. But he made these, and my two brothers got them as part of their Christmas, and you couldn't buy them in the shop, so you couldn't. It was just wonderful to think that you'd had that, you know, and it was something like out of nothing, you know.
This was the only guy that had a voice. Well, it doesn't say very much right enough. I know. It doesn't say very much right enough, but it was the only one I gave a voice to, and a different voice, and you just seemed to like him.
It just really makes you get sleep better for me.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, not really sure.
It's actually, see, like if I take a minute and just kind of look at him, I actually think why, and like you must be looking at him thinking what on earth is going on, but I just look at him as Ted, like he's just always been the Ted, and he's just always been there. And like when I go to my grand's, like my dad's side, she'll always say, how's Ted, as if it's a person. I'm like, oh he's fine, he's next to was sore, usual.
We didn't get much, but what we did get, we prized it. Everything was precious to us, you know. But my young sister, she came out well. She got a doll, and she got a doll's bed. My father made her a cot for her doll's bed, and I made her covers for it, because by that time I was using a sewing machine, and I made a quilt for it and a pillow, and she got her doll. I always remember it was a lovely wee doll, and it had a long pink satin dress and a wee pink satin hat that tied under its chin, and I envied her that doll. So I did.
I had a black fluffy cat that I used to carry about all over the place, and then it got lost. But I don't think it did get lost. I think I was actually allergic to it and it got lost on purpose. Now that I'm older, I found that out. But yeah, that was my other favourite toy.
Falling apart!
It's a long time since I did Tony the Teddy voice. Hello, Julia. How you doing? Unfortunately, my lips move when I do it, so I used to lie on the floor and have him over the side of the bath. So I used to sound a bit better than that.
I can tell you a story about his tail. It's kind of cut with scissors. That was Alice, because she knew that if I was bad, she knew how to get me back. And one day, she cut his tail with scissors, and I cried and cried and cried, and never be bad again. I thought that was quite harsh, to be fair. She thought it was quite funny. I think she felt quite sorry afterwards, though.
Anyway, as I say, the doll, I always had this thing for a doll. And eventually, one day I got a doll, and I can't remember how I got it. I have a feeling I got it from an aunt who was my godmother, and it was what they called a double-jointed doll. It bent at the knees and at the elbows and at the wrists, and you could move it about, and its eyes opened and shut, and its head could turn round, and it was beautifully dressed in a box. And the thing was, in those days, we had to treat toys as precious. We didn't just get them and then cast them aside. they were put away for the next time you got them out to play. And sometimes it was only when you weren't very well, if you were off school or something like that. And it so happened that one of the times I was off school, I got to sleep in Mum and Dad's bed, which was in the kitchen. And that way my mother could keep her eye on me. So I was in this bed, it was like the hole in the wall bed, they called them. And I got the doll to play with. I got the doll to keep me company in bed, you see.
What if you marry a man that doesn't like unicorns?
Well, I just keep them up in the attic.
What, the husbands or the unicorns?
The unicorns.
And when I used to go in the washing machine, I used to cry and watch him going round and round for hours. And then Alice used to hang him up outside in the washing line by his ears. And I used to sit under him and just watch him till he dried. As you do.
So that was fine. It helped to make me better. So much so that I got so much better that my mother says, right, it's time you were out of that bed. So once I came out the bed, my mother began to pull the sheets and things off the bed, and in doing so she pulled the doll off the bed and it smashed, and that was the end of my doll. So it was.
I don't know why, but you seem to put a lot of trust in Tony. You would tell him all sorts of stuff that you've been doing during the day that you'd never mentioned to anybody else. So it's bizarre that somebody who is, or somebody, sorry, something that's an inanimate object, you would put great trust in and you'd be happy to tell him all the things that happened.
Like he's mine, even though he's broken, and I still love him.
Do you think Rachel would enjoy playing with your toys?
Yes. I'll just need to hide that one now.
It's cute. I don't even know what you smell like. First.
Mine's was the doll that I never forgot. And strangely enough, I got a present of a doll not so long ago from my daughter to make up for the doll that I got lost, and I've still got it. So I've.
As many things in my life change, it looks like there will always be space for Toy Stories with Tony. Yeah, I think that's about it.
So the last word about that was first. Smashing.